the Know Your Gear podcast. The Know Your Gear podcast is brought to you by Patreon members, channel members, and viewers who like and subscribe. Thank you for making this possible.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Know Your Gear podcast, live episode 422. Sometimes I'm like live from Arizona. It doesn't sound as cool as New York, right? Live from Arizona. The Know Your Gear podcast, episode 422. All right, we have a lot of things to cover today. So many subjects, so many topics, so many questions. I guess technically a subject and a topic's the same. But we got to get through a lot of stuff. So I'm going to move fast, especially on the announcements. So announcements are pretty basic. We do have new merch with new logos. Some of you guys requested some of the logos not have a, S type. Can we do that? Can we Strat style guitar shape? Some of you guys asked for a tele shape or a Les Paul shape. And so we did not make those shapes. We made shapes that look like those shapes for legal reasons. But you can check that merch out. I also want to thank the patrons and the channel members and all of you for supporting the channel. If you want to watch this ad-free, you have 3 choices. You can, maybe 4, let's see. You can watch it live. There's no ads during the live until it rebroadcasts. You can watch it on Patreon for $5 a month and get all the live ad-free ones, or you can listen to it streaming on iTunes, Spotify, and all those places. Again, ad-free. Or you can just pay for YouTube ad-free or get some kind of blocker thing. So that's it. Hopefully you guys will not complain. I'll complain all you want. I understand. Okay. So let's get into some of the early topics if we can real quickly. The first topic that I saw was from Jeremy. Says, hey Phil, do you still have your Vela? Could you please make it a guitar of the week? I can't make it a guitar of the week. I don't have the Vela. I did tell that story once. It's in a podcast somewhere. I bought that guitar from where did I buy the Vela from? I bought it from, I don't remember where I bought it. But anyways, I don't have it anymore. It's one of those things. It was probably my second favorite S2 after my semi-hollow black one that I keep referring to. And it's not that I regret getting rid of it. I just don't. But I don't. I didn't get rid of it for any, good reasons other than there's just too many guitars. I try to keep my personal collection as close to just things that just really mean something to me emotionally, since there's a parade of guitars, coming. I mean, I'm going to do 52 deep dives just this year. That's 52 guitars that I'm going to buy, borrow, or be sent to me by companies. And so life is a parade of guitars on the channel. It's one of the beautiful blessings of this channel is that there's never an end of guitars in sight for me to get to experience, but it does make it harder for me to kind of, take the time to enjoy my personal guitars. So I try to make them have an emotional attachment as much as just liking the way it plays. So that's all. So I don't know. Okay. That was just an early riser question I saw and I grabbed it. I thought I grabbed another one. This one is, I'm trying to grab the easy ones fast. Here's a good one. This one says, hey, did you see the new Badlands? Guitar Max, I guess, did a review of one. It says, I know you got rid of yours. Are you going to review one? And it would be nice to see a deep dive to see if their quality has improved. Nope. I don't have any plans to do a deep dive of a Badlands. The main reason, as I've explained in the past, is that when it comes to guitars, especially guitars, more so than pedals and amps, but all of the above are included. I tell you guys, you hear it all the time. YouTubers like, I don't review anything I don't like. That's not true. I don't review anything I'm not interested in. So I can review something that I don't necessarily like or wouldn't be necessarily for me, but I think it's interesting. When I say it's interesting, maybe it's interesting to me, or I think it's interesting to you, or it'd be interesting content. And, and I think that's all kind of good reasons to do it. So like I said, I'll do a video of pretty much any product that I find interesting in some way, unless I just wouldn't see myself ever buying one. And a good example of that is I had Guitar Center send me the new BC Rich Gunslinger. And, obviously that was a huge failure video, in my opinion, for them. And I guess my point is, when I went into that, I didn't know I was not gonna like the guitar at the end. Pretty much it's fine, but it wasn't amazing. And that was kind of the fun for me, was kind of learning the experience. There's some companies I just know I wouldn't buy a guitar from, and so I'm not going to do a video of those guitars. And that's a very short list. I don't think it's more than 2 or 3 companies, but for those reasons, I'm not going to do videos of those products. It's usually tied to like maybe like I would put it in the same regards of you'll never see me do a chips in here. It's because on an ethic level, I'm never going to buy a chips in, no matter how good or bad they are. I just don't agree with that, that kind of stuff. So if I just don't agree, on a ethics level with something, I'm not going to do it. So that's why it's not going to be a deep dive. Okay, but I appreciate the question, and I'm still interested in hearing your guys' comments about that kind of stuff. Okay, let's go to another topic. Here was a topic. This one's fun. I think it's going to be fun. I'm going to see what I can do with it. This question has been sent to us so many times, and so I want to thank everybody who sent the version of this question. So I'm not going to give credit to one person because there's so many, but the question is always about, and especially came up recently with the Herman Lee guitars, is this limited edition stuff real? In other words, is limited edition, and I'm going to give the best version of the question I have here, which is limited edition products a money grab? And or is it real? Okay, like, are they just making artificial, hype, artificial FOMO, fear of missing out? And the answer is no. In most cases, limited edition is hype. It's not real. In some cases, limited edition is a legit issue in the idea that maybe they can only get resources to make 10 or 1,000 or whatever it is. Sometimes that resource isn't necessarily like, let's talk about guitars. Like with Herman Lee's new signature guitar. Obviously, I don't think there's an issue getting mahogany or maple to make the guitars. I don't think there's an issue getting Goto bridges for the bridge or Fishman pickups. So there's component-wise, I don't believe there's anything in the Herman Lee signature guitar that is so unique that PRS can only get 200 pieces of that material to make the guitar. So making it limited is not a restriction by the materials. Another thing to point out is an interesting fun fact is the Herman Lee guitar case, which is a PRS case, fits a real PRS custom 24, standard 24 as well. It was interchangeable. I thought that was interesting. I didn't know that. So I have that case, and I have one of the, and I have the Herman Lee case, and I have the Universal case, and I misappropriated them the other day when I was putting guitars in, and I was like, oh, and they both fit in each other's cases. I wouldn't have known except for when I opened the compartment to get the Herman Lee stuff, there wasn't in the compartment. I was like, where'd it go? And then I realized I had swapped the cases. So something funny. But back to limited edition and this scam. I guess it's a scam. We're going to call it a scam. We're going to be that harsh. We're going to call it money grabs. So there is a bunch of money grab things. And limited edition in that case in Herman Lee, what I think it is the limited edition was, look, how many are they going to sell? How many $7,000 crazy, PRS guitars with, a Goto bridge and Fishman pickups and stuff are they going to really sell in that? And they probably came up with a number, and the number was probably like, maybe it was 300, maybe it was 250. I think they probably put their best educated guess, especially PRS, because PRS is notoriously known for what I thought and always thought that they did the best limited edition stuff ever. What I mean by that is PRS used to do this thing, which I thought was so smart. They didn't cut it to a number, they cut it to a time. It was something that you would notice they would do. And I always thought that was the best way to do limited edition stuff when you do just-in-time manufacturing. So for instance, what I mean by that is PRS, like Music Man and, mini brands, as you know, do what's called just-in-time manufacturing, which means they don't make an instrument unless they have an order for it. So PRS is not going to make a Herman Lee signature guitar unless somebody ordered it. Somebody being a dealer, not a customer, right? Not the end user, the customer, the dealer being the customer. So if they get 200 orders, they make 200 guitars. They used to do it like, hey, we're taking orders for this guitar for the month of, let's say, July. And so if they got 1,000 orders, that's how many they made. On August 1st, they were like, that's the end of it. More are going to be made. And so I always thought that was really a fair way to do things, because then that way you really know what the market can hold. Because one of the things that I hate about limited edition is it creates a stock market kind of vibe on product. In other words, like, they could have sold 400, but now because they're only selling 200, now people are gonna, start scalping and selling them for a premium. And I actually believe that's intentional for a lot of companies to want that. A lot of people will say, but if a company only makes 200 and there's 300 people, they're losing 100 sales. I'm like, you could look at it that way, but you could also look at it like they would have never sold 200 if they didn't create this kind of BS secondhand flipping market for it. In other words, this is notorious with a lot of industries. We're not going to call out our own industry on this, are we? We're going to call out every industry. A lot of industries know that if they make something that is not essentially finite, a resource that's not finite, make that finite, where it's like, hey, we can make endless amounts of these, but we're going to only make a few. You think, oh, they're limiting how many they can sell, but I would argue they're increasing how many they can sell, because let's say there's only 100 Herman Leaf fans that have $7,000 in their pocket and want that guitar. And so they will sell 100. So how do you get it to 200? Well, you create 100 people who think, I'll buy one of these, put it away, and sell it for 10 grand. And their whole point is to make more money, right? And that's exactly what I think happens all the time in a lot of industries. Beast Rich 8581 says performance cars, for example. Yeah, look, I just watched the Beanie Baby movie, and that's basically what they called the Beanie Baby bubble. Say that twice as fast. The Beanie Baby bubble. So they said that basically, they've created this artificial demand by Beanie Babies by restricting how many they made. And then when they finally opened up the floodgates, it all came crashing down. So yeah, there's a little bit of that in that game for sure when it comes to limited edition. I'm not a big fan of that. Like I said, I think the best way to do limited edition is to open up, whether you're direct to consumer or direct to the dealers. I think open up a time window and say, hey, anybody who's interested in this, put in your orders and we'll make them. But there is a second half to that story that I would be remiss if I didn't tell you, which is sometimes the scarcity is really how much time do you want to allocate to this when you have other things to do, okay? So a perfect example of that is a story that I don't know if it's 100% true, but it's a rumor that's been around for a long, long, long time, and it revolved around Mesa Boogie. Mesa Boogie made an amplifier called the Blue Angel, and I remember this amp came out, and it was really kind of like a more affordable Mesa Boogie, and the rumor was that the amp did so well that Mesa Boogie discontinued it. And then you're like, well, wait a minute. If it did really well, why'd they discontinue it? Well, the rumor was they discontinued it because they were selling more of those than some of the higher priced, higher profit amplifiers. So they're creating a problem for themselves. This is a problem I've seen happen to some personal friends where they finally get into the big box stores, let's say the Guitar Center, the Tome, and the Sweetwater, only to find out that they have a new burden. And the new burden is that those companies are putting an order for 100 of their pieces or 1,000 pieces at a 30 to 40% discount from what they sell direct to consumer. And now they're putting their customers, direct customers, on hold to fill these orders at a discount. So you can imagine they have employees and they're like, oh, I need to hire more employees, but my employees are busy building things that I don't make as much money on. So there is a cannibalized sales aspect. Thank you for that, Michael Rockwell. It's a good way to put it. Cannibalizing sales is the perfect way to put that. There is that factor that they have to worry about. So limited edition could have a reason that way. Like I said, it's not resources. It's not trying to create an artificial sales environment. It's just physically like we can't create a problem for us. And also limited edition also works as a marketing tool. Come on, man. Are you really going to talk about the Herman Lee guitar if it wasn't dramatically different and crazy high priced? That's kind of part of the appeal of it, was like, what? This is such a crazy thing. Let's talk about this. And there's a little bit of that. And I think that is. Now, of course, I have a theory, and I've said this before, when it comes to Gibson, Fender, PRS, you name the brand, especially those three, where they tend to always do this, like obviously Mesa Boogie, or not Mesa Boogie, sorry, I was thinking of Gibson and Mesa Boogie. Gibson did this with the Kirk Hammett guitars, and stuff. It's like, hey, let's make a really expensive guitar that no one really can afford, and everybody's going to want it, but they can't afford it. And then, we have a more affordable version next month. And you're like, oh, how convenient that worked out, right? But maybe the affordable version, you wouldn't have primed the pumps, so to speak, if you didn't have that unobtainium guitar to get. Plus, if you know the term anchor pricing, where you kind of, when you're trying to sell something to somebody, you say you anchor them to a price, right? So if you say, hey, this guitar is $12,000, but I can make this $6,000. In your mind, I just cut the guitar price in half. But what if I made up the $12,000? It's not real. So anchor pricing is great when you're talking about a $20,000 Les Paul or PRS or Fender, you name it, some unobtainium crazy price point with some unobtainium crazy guitar. And you go, oh, look at this. And you go, that's crazy. And they go, well, we'll make you affordable one for $3,000. And $3,000 should be a shocking price for most of us. $3,000 is an insane amount of money, $3,000. But comparatively speaking to $20,000, that's a smoking deal, isn't it? I mean, that's $17,000 less. Your brain immediately goes, I could buy me and all my friends, maybe that kind of person. I'll buy all my friends one of these for $3,000. Maybe you're like me and you have like one or two friends. You're like, wow, that's $9,000 and I still have $11,000 in my pocket and right. And so, like I said, so those are some reasons for that. So yes, it's a money grab thing. Yes, it's a lot of it is, smoke and mirrors, but there is some reality based into it. So that's why we always have to make our best, kind of our best guess when we're looking at what a company's up to. And, and this ties into a couple things that I've said for years. It's like when companies say like, oh, we can't, the hypocrisy of manufacturing to the marketing, this connection. It's marketing's job to sell the idea that manufacturing is building, so to speak. And so like one of my favorite things that the industry does, I'm just picking on our industry now, but of course all are guilty of it. It's like, hey, we can't make this thing anymore because there's a component in it, right? There's always a thing that's magical and it's just, there's like, we can't get that part anymore. And it's always funny to me where it's like, oh, we can't make this anymore because they no longer make this part. So you better buy up what we have now, or you better pay a premium. See, now we put this original part in there. It's worth way, way more. And it always seems that way until they run out. And then when they run out, it's like, oh, we found a new part. And ironically, the new part's even better than the old part. Isn't that how it works? Isn't it funny how that works? When they have some of those old parts and they're finite, you have to have them. And when they run out of those parts, they have a new part that's ironically better. It's always funny that it's better. It's like, I know we told you that one part was better and hard to get and we couldn't get it anymore. But we luckily found a new part that's way better. It's kind of like there's a story that I love and it's always stuck with me. And it goes like this. It says, so Fender guitars, I'm picking on Fender, but I'm not really picking on Fender, okay? So Fender guitars, when I was a dealer when Fender made the decision to no longer include a gig bag with a made in Mexico Strat. Or made in Mexico guitars, I shouldn't say Strats, the basses, teles. I remember like they showed up, there was no announcement. They just showed up and they're not with gig bags. And you're thinking, what's going on here? I'm not paying less. What happened to my gig bag? So of course, like anybody, I called them up and I got my rep on the phone and I said, hey, by the way, I'm old, so this is what I think a phone looks like with your. Okay, so I'll be younger now and go, hey. Oh, okay, well, I'll be really young and I'll go, hey. Okay, I'll be really young and I'll do it with my thumbs. Okay, anyways, I'm like, hey, what's up? No gig bags with the guitars. And they're like, oh, we're no longer including gig bags with the Made in Mexico series of guitars. And I'm like, what? What's going on? And I knew it. I knew the answer. I thought I did. I was so wrong. I thought they're going to say, I knew the next thing out of his mouth is like, we didn't want to raise prices. I call it Taco Bell theory, right? They don't raise tacos from 69 cents to 79 cents. They just make the tacos smaller and then they keep it 69 cents. And eventually they raise the price. I'm like, oh, they're not going to raise the price. They're just going to take something away. That's not what they said. He said, Guitar Center doesn't want gig bags anymore with the guitars. Now, so this is a rumor, but I'd like to point out, because again, I can't prove that this is exactly what happened, but what I can tell you for a fact, for legal purposes, is a sales rep at Fender, who if I ever had to in a legal case, I could name and probably show the email correspondence as well. Anyways, a representative from Fender told me the story. So if it's a rumor, he made it up. And I think actually somebody else from Fender verified this too, but I'll have to look at but we'll go off. At least the source comes from one Fender representative who said Guitar Center requested that none of the guitars have gig bags anymore. And the reason being twofold. One, they said that they lose the gig bags. It's more crap for them to have to track and keep in their back rooms. The second reason is they had just started or acquired, or I don't remember if they acquired it or started, Roadrunner cases. So now they could add on a case or gig bag to the guitar. Interesting enough, I keep seeing this trend with there's a trend. Here's the trend. The trend is that the manufacturers are now going from cases to gig bags. We know there's an expense there, so we understand that to some degree. I'm not saying a lot of you are happy about it, but a lot of you understand it because it's expense. And then some of them are going from gig bags to no gig bags. And a lot of them are going to no gig bags, no cases. And that only is funny because of this. It's in the same breath. It's like no one wants a case. That's their marketing, by the way. These companies, like, everybody doesn't need another case or a gig bag. They have so many guitars now. They just don't need case or gig bags. They stack up. So we're not including that anymore. But they're doing you a favor by not giving it to you. But also coincidentally, at the same time, all the major retailers have acquired or started a case gig bag brand, right? Two things seem to be at odds with each other. It's like, oh, no one wants a case or gig bag with their guitars, but also if you're Sweetwater, you own Gator, and if you're Guitar Center, you own Roadrunner. And I don't know if does Thomann own a case company? But it's just ironically, it's like, yeah, you guys don't want case or gig bags, but we're going to buy a case gig bag company because that makes sense. So this all falls in under the money grab. When I think of the money grab, kind of policies or the money grab kind of vibe that I think we're all getting at. And then I think one more tirade, and then we'll move on subject is this, because I think of this whole thing that they do to us, and I think it's funny how little we give discussion to it. And this one's my favorite, probably, of all the weird things that companies do that say something matters, but also something doesn't matter at the same time, right? Is the made in the USA stuff. It's like, oh, it doesn't matter if it's made in the USA. But I'm like, right, it doesn't matter unless, of course, you make it in the USA, and then you put, oh, it's made in the USA, and you put that really huge in print on the front of the product and on the packaging. But if it's not made in the USA, it doesn't matter. But of course, on the back, it doesn't say made in China. It says designed in USA, made in China, designed in Germany, made in China, designed in the UK, made in China, right? And not to pick on China, we'll just say designed in Canada and made in Vietnam, whatever you want to call it, right? It's always kind of funny to me. It's like, oh, it doesn't matter, but yet you seem to really focus on it really, really hard. Because like at the end of it, like where do we care where it's designed, right? Like some guy, especially since if you're in this industry for any period of time and you know this, a lot of the designs in our industry, they're not what you think they are. In other words, there's not somebody, you probably think there's somebody painstakingly working at a company designing up new ideas all the time. No, they hire in designers all the time. Companies are known for contractually bringing in a designer. Fender does this all the time. They hire somebody come in and design a product, and then they're gone. That's what they did. They design that product, and then they go on their merry way. So they're like designed in the USA by a contracted designer, and then built somewhere overseas. So Yardbird68 says designed in China, made in China. Yeah, how come you never see that? When I say never, I'm not saying it's not. I've never seen it. Is it out there? Maybe, but it's Mighty Guitar Mod says, don't drag Canada into this. In all fairness, I got to tell you, I was thinking that out loud. I'm like, yeah, I don't know of a Canadian brand. In fact, if you notice, I think one of the things in our industry, I have to say is that when I think of Canadian brands like Rev or Godin, which keep in mind, Godin is a plethora of brands, being Norman, Simon Patrick, Le Patre, Arts and Lutherie. What's the acoustic amp brand? Something. It's 2 letters, but anyways, just a few name. Oh, of course, Radial, another amazing brand. Now that I think about it, almost all the Canadian brands I can think of are actually made in Canada. There's very few there. I'm trying to think. Somebody in the comments tell me, is there a brand, a Canadian-based musical instrument brand that's noteworthy that makes their stuff in China or Indonesia or, Korea or Vietnam or wherever, right? Just pick a country that does mass production. That is Matt says Trainer. You know what? Is Trainer now made in overseas? Is that would be the first brand? And is Trainer even a Canadian brand anymore? Because it's been sold off. So let's try this. Let's ask. Oh, sorry. Okay, let's see. Yorkville Sound owns Trainer amps. Trainer is a brand of bass amplifiers and guitar amplifiers that is owned by Yorkville. And Yorkville. So now we have to ask, who owns Yorkville? Who owns? Why do I think Yorkville is a German company? No, Yorkville Sound is a Canadian pro audio manufacturer. Is owned by the Long family. Oh, which is a subsidiary of Long and McQuaid. Oh, is everything? You ever notice when you try to learn about a company now, it's like you're going down a conspiracy. I have sweat on my lip. Conspiracy theory, right? Like, oh, who owns this company? Oh, this company. Who owns that company? Another company. Who owns that? A relative of this company. I mean, it seems nefarious. I'm sure it's all fine, but it's kind of funny to who owns Trainer? Yorkville. Who owns Yorkville? The Long family. Who are they? They're a subsidiary of the Long and McQuaid business retail company. Oh, so technically, the way I would see this, I'm probably wrong, is I look at this now the way I would look at when Sam Ash owned Hartkey and Samson and stuff like that. So Samson. So interesting. So anyways, interesting. All right, and I've kind of dipped out of the comment section, so if you guys are trying to update me cool stuff, I'd be missing it. Yorkville Sound is a classic Toronto institution. Oh, see? Thank you, Joe. I appreciate that. So, yeah, I would like... and then Quilted Maple, ironically, that's a great name, says Long family owns everything. Yeah, it makes sense, right? I mean, it's kind of like how it's all working everywhere, isn't it? Just one... Isn't it funny how certain people are just... They end up owning it all. They own it all. All right, I think we've killed this subject. I think so, right? We've done this? Yep. I think we're good. All right, next subject. This will be a lot easier. A lot of you asked me about the new 50% tariff on copper. So for the record, we don't talk politics. If you push politics or talk politics, you'll get ejected out of the comment section. Why? Because it's not fun. We're not talking about that. I just want to make a disclaimer. And I never will ever pull on you guys I don't talk about politics, but I really like none of that stuff. Tariff is a cost increase, and we talk about the industry we love, which is guitars industry and how it affects it. And copper is one of those things, man. Pickups are made of copper. That's a big thing. So let me just tell you what I found out to date, and that will help you because I got a lot of emails about this. Hey, what do you think about the 50% tariff on copper? I talked to a couple pickup manufacturers, and they all kind of gave the same answer, which is they have no idea at this point what that means. It sounds like a price increase, but the problem is that we don't know. They don't know if the companies that sell them the copper is going to pass the increase or eat the increase or eat a percentage of the increase, and what that even means. So I just wanted to let you know. It's the reason I bring it up is obviously look. Tariffs are taxes, and taxes suck, and I don't care where you live in the world. No one likes a tax, except for the tax collector. They seem to love the hell out of them, but the people have to pay them not so much. My point, though, when it comes to this is, since it's guitar pickups, and that's something that's really near and dear to our hearts, how is it going to affect? And is it going to affect the small builders? I'm sure it's going to affect everybody. My guess, looking at it like a lot of things, is you might see companies absorb a lot of the costs to keep sales moving along, and at some point they'll be passed on to you. What I've learned in the past in this industry about price increases is if manufacturers or retailers absorb them, they only absorb them for a short time. So it's never a case of if you do or do not, you always, do or do not pay the increase. You will pay the increase, but it's postponed. And so we might be a year before we start seeing an effective price increase. So I'm just saying, I don't foresee Seymour Duncan and DiMarzio pickups jumping price $10 a pickup or $20 a pickup next month is what I'm saying. So, and that's the important part, because the question really is to a lot of us, and especially when your hard-earned money is like, okay, I got real bills to pay and this is a luxury for me, but this is something that I'm passionate about. It's like, do I have to make that choice right now? Do I have to, hey, do the kids don't go to Disneyland so dad can get some new pickups? By the way, I hope you're not doing that. Like, sorry kids, no Mickey Mouse for you. Dad's pit sound sucks. You don't want dad to have bad tone, then he's grumpy. Anyways, I feel like this is going off the rails. Anyways, my point is that I don't see the price jumping really, really, really soon. So it gives you a buffer, and then I'll keep you up to date if I hear anything else. And then a couple, Jerry McKinsey says, how much copper is used in a pickup in actual dollars? Well, there's, so take a typical single coil Strat pickup. There could be 7,000 to 8,000 winds on a pickup. A P90 will have 9,000 to 10,000 winds. So a humbucker has about 20,000 winds, somewhere in there, is a general estimate. So obviously that's easy to. I could tell you on a small spool. Let's talk about a small spool. So this would affect like a small pickup builder right away, right? A small spool of copper, because when you start out making pickups, you don't buy the bigger spools; they're just too expensive. So, like, here's a good example. This will give you a reference right here. I'm trying to give you the practice. Again, this channel is more of a consumer advocate channel. So again, I'm not really worried about the big companies as much. With you guys, here's what you have to pay attention to. Here's a polycoated pickup wire, which is a very common wire that you would buy. 42 or 43 gauge. So 42 would be for your humbuckers, your P90s, and your Strat pickups. They're sold out. That's not a good sign. That's probably people jumping on it before it was too late. Again, don't panic buy yet. 43 gauge would be mostly for like if you're trying to make a super distortion pickup or if you're doing a tele neck pickup. So you can see right here, $95, $92 for a spool wire. I think a spool wire like this can make me 3 to 4 pickups. I'm doing off memory because I started buying the bigger spools, but in fact, I have a couple spools of these. If you watch my videos, you'll see in my shop, there's a row of those because I used to buy them in small ones before I started buying the big ones. So I've kind of lost track, but, so what could that mean for you? I mean, if they jump the price, from $90 to let's say $130, I mean, it's $40 more. And then you divide it up by, that's to you hard cost $10 per pickup, basically. So, which is huge when you think about it in a pickup. When you think about a pickup kit and the copper wire, you're probably talking all in. I mean, think about this pre-COVID era, 2020. In 2019, you could probably build a single coil pickup easily for $30, all in, all components, just not your labor and time and not the equipment. But yeah, so. Like I said, it's pretty hefty. We'll see what happens. I like all this stuff. It's all up in the air and it's all crazy. And it seems like everybody you should be aware of it, but don't freak out until you know it's time to freak out, so to speak. Does that make sense? Deja says throwback guys. Oh, so he's talking about John and the guys at Throwback. Says mention that the market is pretty quick at reacting to what the big guys say at his press. Oh, okay. So you're talking about the president of the United States. Says it's so they're definitely prepped for the chaos. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. Like I said, I just wanted to make you aware of what I've heard. And like I said, I would say barring no changes to this, which seems like it is a daily event of changes of craziness. Barring no changes, you're gonna get a price increase. We're all getting a price increase. I just don't see that it's going to happen soon. And if everyone's panic buying right now, one thing that could happen is they panic buy, but without the demand, they're going to be sitting on material. So that's not a good sign either. So I don't know. Okay. So, and again, this is only pickups that are made in the United States. So they can ditch this by just making them overseas too. And they might go to that. More pickups are made overseas than you would ever imagine, especially manufacturers like guitar manufacturers. There's a lot of high-end guitar manufacturers that aren't actually making pickups in the United States. That you'd be shocked to know. One day we'll talk about it if you want. All right, let's what are we gonna do now? Let's do Guitar of the Week.
Now it's time for Guitar of the Week.
It's Guitar of the Week. So you guys seem to be liking the Guitar of the Week, where it's more of a QVC, kind of like, hey, you get to buy this stuff. So Guitar of the Week is sponsored by Sweetwater, and what they're sponsoring is bubble wrap. We were going to take a picture of all the bubble wrap we bought because she got a lot of it now, but we didn't do it. So they funded us. They paid for the boxes and the bubble wrap and the tape. I forgot about the tape. That's expensive. So what's great about that is we're not charging shipping, and I put the prices as aggressive as I felt like I could do on the stuff. So we're doing 2 more. It's this week and next week. So we did 4 for the month, and I'm selling off 2 guitars each week, a deep dive guitar and the Guitar of the Week. And this guitar is both. It's a deep dive guitar and Guitar of the Week, and the idea that the deep dive hasn't happened. So you're going to get a guitar pre-deep dive if you're interested in this one. In other words, the deep dive comes out like in a week or so, and then it comes out before the end of the month. It's on the schedule. And so you'll get the guitar before you get the deep dive. But nothing really bad on the deep dive to mention. Otherwise, I'd tell you in the listing. Okay, so what do we got? We have a Kiesel. No, we have a Shiji Les Paul. Now, we've done a Guitar Week of this, but I decided I need a deep dive because after playing it for a while, I was like, this guitar is really good. So it's an interesting guitar. There's some things you're going to find out, like, Phil, if it's so good, why aren't you keeping it? Well, you're going to find out in a second. There's one thing that it's going to make it hard for a lot of you to buy it. And should I just get right to that part? Okay, it's 10 pounds, 10 ounces. So you kind of gotta do your workouts with it, right? Look at that. You gotta do that. 10 pounds, 10 ounces. So it's more like a real Les Paul than any other Les Paul copy because of the 10 pounds, 10 ounces. So Shiji, if you don't know, is a high-end company made in China where they make the guitars essentially more crafted by hand and less by machine, kind of via like the idea of the Eastman guitars. Everything is kind of a high-quality thing, and their reputation is well received by the guitar community. The frets are highly detailed. These are nickel silver frets, not stainless steel, which is something they're known for. This guitar is a mahogany body, and it's got a cool neck carve. I'm going to go to side camera so you can see this. Side cam. Look at that. You can see my coffee mug. You're welcome. Okay. Look at that neck carve. So kind of like how Gibson does on the Moderns. Really nice. And then you have this beautiful mahogany body with this gold top. And the gold top really sets it off. It looks really good. You have two volumes and 2 tones. And no push-pulls. The pickups are Seymour Duncan 59s, so USA 59 pickups, and it does come with a hardshell case, and it comes with locking Kluson-style tuning keys. I absolutely love the way the guitar plays. I love the way the guitar sounds. Absolutely do not get along with 10 pounds, 10 ounces, especially this. So if you want to know how it does on the deep dive, well, it does great when it comes to quality. It does bad in their verbiage right here. Let me show you words. It says, the LPV series flagship model strikes a fine balance between luxurious features and practicality, featuring a 14-degree headstock, which is nice. So it's not as extreme as the 17-degree Gibson. It's more like the Epiphone, so less likely to break, which is cool. Angle is set in a set neck joint, exclusive body weight reduction technology. Your technology sucks. Shiji, I love you guys. I have not ever had a defective product as a deep dive. I've never had anything to say negatively about you, but I don't think this is weight relieved. I think that there is nothing in here that makes me think, not just because it's 10 pounds, 10 ounces, although that's a kind of a sign, it doesn't seem weight relieved. So I think this one is not weight relieved, and it is possible in their defense that this was sent to me and then they made some changes. They're notorious, not Shiji, but companies are notorious for sending you something and then changing things, and then, I don't know why. So anyways, so back to the fun. All right. So mother of pearl inlays, which is accurate, what I see here. And it says, yeah, it's got Indian rosewood fretboard, African mahogany, built-in carbon fiber rod. So like one rod? It should be two. It should be one on each side. But, again, it says one. It's got a bone nut right there. Frets and machine heads. Frets, American nickel. Locking tuners are called Shiji locking tuners. But like I said, just keep in mind, these are, here, I'll go to slide camera. These are definitely somewhere in there. Clouson style locking keys. There. Kind of hard to get that angle. Okay, go back to the web. And Godot bridge, which is quality, they normally put a lot of Godot components on this. Usually they have Godot pickups, but this has the Seymour Duncan 59 pickup set. And this doesn't say what type of finish. See, it says color, finish, nothing. I do not believe this is lacquer. It feels like polyurethane, but I could be wrong. That will be verified at one point. Now that I haven't think about it, I probably should make sure it gets verified. Neck is not chunky. So this neck is the closest neck I've felt to a 59 Les Paul. I've told you I've put my hands on 3 59 Les Pauls, real ones. Maybe 4, definitely 3. And the one thing I always took away from them was the necks are never as chunky as the reissues are. And I have a theory about that. I've said this for years, which is one of my theories is that companies kind of lay into the chunky 59 Les Paul neck. And I think the original 59 Les Paul neck was not chunky. I just think when you compared it to other guitars, it felt chunky. So it got exaggerated and then just started making thicker and thicker, because the 57 necks usually are a little thicker. This neck is not chunky at all. In fact, this neck actually feels almost exactly like my Gibson RO, which is a 60 neck with a little bit of C carve. So pretty cool. Let's plug in and play. Now, what are we going to be playing through? Well, today we're playing through the Magnatone M80. I was inspired to pull this amp out because they just did an interview. Granville did an interview with Slash about this Magnatone, Slash being with Magnatone amps, and he's actually playing the M80. I have a video of the M80 coming very, very soon. I had 3 Magnatone videos to do. I did the first one. I'm doing the second one. And it's easy. If you don't want to watch the Magnatone videos, it's super easy. I absolutely love them, the Magnatone stuff. Love it. No questions at all. So I have this one set up. I have it mic'd up with the E609, and I have effects, reverb and delay running in my Rodecaster Pro 2. So the microphone is going to be adding some delay and reverb when I switch. And I have a boost pedal here, so I'm going to show you the clean. And this is my favorite way to play the M80. If you don't know the M80 baby, it's basically it's got a tone control. No, it's got a bass, it's got a treble, it's got a volume, it's got a gain, it's got a little switch. I wish there was foot switchable to do that, but what I learned with the switch is I just use a boost pedal in front of it. So let's go ahead and play. Oh, that's me. You saw me watching me. Okay, let's go to the side cam. Side cam. We'll start with the guitar. So that's your neck pickup. Sounds great. Sounds really good in the middle position. There's a part of me that believes that this guitar sounds good because it is heavy. There's something about the big, chunky, heavy Les Pauls that just sound great. Even though this is technically not a Les Paul, but it is a Les Paul. Okay, bridge. I kind of do that. Okay, so here's a little cool little tidbit for you. I'm going to go ahead and switch off my EQ pedal. So what I was, little fun thing I thought I'd do today is I'll show you. I use an EQ pedal. This is a Boss EQ. And what I do is I push the volume down on the EQ pedal and I EQ it out. So that the amp, this is what the amp sounds like without the EQ pedal on. And you're like, wait, what? Yeah, it's because what I'm using the EQ pedal for is I'm using the EQ pedal, like rolling your volume knob on your guitar back. I'm using it to bring the volume down, and then I EQ out where it thins out a little bit. So it's basically like rolling my volume back on the amp. Okay, let's go back to the guitar. You don't care about me, you care about the guitar. Now look at that. Not enough of that. So I have a boost pedal here, and with a boost. For the neck pickup. Okay, turn the boost off. Maybe if I do that, yep. So let's go ahead and turn off, push my, oh, there it is. Okay. And mute the guitar on here. Look at that. Like almost like a professional place. Okay. So this is the guitar of the week again, so to speak. We did it again, but I wanted to do that. And it comes with a hard shell case. Let's look at this. Let me show you something funny. So we learned a lesson. That's why the show was a couple minutes late today. We learned a lesson, which is you guys, some of you guys are great. And, you guys are grabbing the stuff before we get to share it with anybody. So we actually had the Martin I just did a deep dive on. That was going to be the guitar for the deep dive guitar that's for sale this week, but somebody bought it. Thank you for buying that, by the way. And instead, so this is the guitar of the week, the Shiji. Now, so if you so watched, you'll see that Shiji sells this guitar for $1,490. At least that's what it says here. So that's what I saw it listed at, right? Okay. So what did we do? We decided to put the guitar at 50% off. That we thought that made it a fair bargain. $744.98 includes the case and the shipping. If you guys are interested, if not, I understand too, because it is heavy. And then also just let you know that the deep dive guitar, the G&L purple guitar, instead of going back, we're just going to go ahead and sell that to fund the channel for other things. Maybe some G&Ls coming soon. Anyways, and we have that marked as well. And you can watch the deep dive video if you're so curious about that. And then we had, if you didn't notice on our sister channel, which is what we're calling it now, I guess, we did some pedal reviews this week. Last week we did some tool reviews. This week was some LSL pedals, which are really cool pedals. So if you want to check those out, especially since they're running their pedals right now at 50% off. They're normally $200 and now you can buy them for $90. So if you want to check out that, there's a link in the description down below that takes you to that channel. That channel has been doing really well. Like I said, I want to thank you guys for that, especially since it was really a really cool idea. There's some really cool content coming on that channel, I think in the next day or so, on top of this, because the channel is not like toss the content that doesn't do well on that channel. That's not what we're doing. What we're doing is there's just content I just can't get to. There's just stuff I can't do. And actually, for a second, if you guys, Yardbird68 says, what Boss pedal? I'm using the GE7. Okay. So this is the important part. My wife noticed that on the podcast, a lot of you guys will say, hey, Phil, will you do a video on this? And I'm like, sure, I'll try and get to that. And you go, hey, Phil, it'd be really cool if you did a video for this. And I'd be like, sure, I'll try and get to that. And then she goes, why do you say that? And I go, well, because I'm going to try and get to it. She goes, yeah, but then you don't do it. And I'm like, well, it's not my intention. Some of it I do. And she says, well, what's the problem? And I told her, so you guys know, I have 13 videos on the main channel that are in my queue right now, or on my calendar to do. So you can imagine if somebody said, hey, Phil, will you do a video about this? I'm like, sure. After the 13 videos I have to do, if no other videos come on my plate on top of that, I'll get to that. So now the second channel is, for instance, I took a day and I just did a bunch of pedal reviews. And they're being edited and put on the second channel. So for those of you like, hey, I wish you would do more pedal reviews. Well, guess what? Instead of me going, I'll try and get you one of those, and I'll get one out to you every couple months. Now I'm like, okay, I'll take a day. And I did like essentially, I don't want to say a month's worth of pedal videos, but I did. So they're going to sparse them out once a week to you on the second channel. And as you can imagine, I told you guys, most of the time I spend is in the editing. And so those are edited, and that helps me do two things. One, keep control of my editing on the main channel a little bit, and also kind of like, do more. Okay, so, all right, so somebody asked about Magnatone. Which one is it? It's the M80 Baby. This is the baby. It's a baby. It's tiny. That's why it looks small. And somebody goes, those Magnatones are expensive. They are hella expensive, okay? They are, look, you're, no matter what you say, you are absolutely right how crazy you are. However, this is the thing about them that I want to tell you why I fell in love with them, okay? This is the important part. The Magnatone M80 Baby is a one-channel amp with 4 knobs. It has an effects loop, which is nice. It's, I think it's 12 watts. Somebody can confirm that. It's low wattage. It's 15 watts, 12 watts. It's $2,000. By the way, their cabinets are ridiculously priced. And I like the cabinets for the aesthetic of it. But if you're asking me, do you have to have the cabinet? No. It just looks cool because it plugs in and lights up both the cabinet and head. So it's not a must have. If you already have a good cabinet, definitely just get the head. $2,000. I will tell you this. If you compare this to, like, let's say the Little Sister by Friedman, that's $1,500. I prefer this, even though it's $500 more. Okay. I prefer this to my twin sister, which is technically 2 channels and $3,000. So I want you to understand, to where you guys go, well, $2,000 is a lot of money. You're absolutely right. But I'm going to argue this amp and the other one that's $2,500, which is the Super 15, at $2,500 is crazy. But remember, the twin sister was $3,000. So, and I prefer either one of those amps to the twin sister. And the main reason is because the twin sister, what I liked about twin sister was I had a channel I could set as clean and a channel I could set as overdrive. What I've learned with these amps, I don't need to do that. Just set the amp to where the tone is good, and then back your volume off on your guitar, or use a EQ pedal. So that's, Frank says, Phil, Magnatone or Amplify Nation, those are 2 different animals. Okay. So let me put it this way. The Amplify Nation, especially the one, the Wonderland Overdrive and stuff, it's a super Fender clean with a kind of a heavy grit, aggressive, Fender on steroids kind of distortion kind of thing. And this is just a Marshall. I've said this before and I'll say it again. If I was going to pick one, I'd probably pick Magnatone. And the reason is this is where it's tough. And this is where it's tough for me. It's not because both those companies I'm friendly with them. It's because the Amplify Nation has more utility to it. In other words, if you only had one amp and you were going to buy one super crazy expensive amp, the Amplify Nation, clean on that is amazing. The reverb on that's amazing, and the distortion amazing. The Magnatone is a sacrifice. You have to find a sweet spot and work within it. But man, when I'm playing on the Magnatones, I play. I just plug in and play. I can't stop playing every time I plug into a Magnatone. I don't know. Well, I know exactly what it is. It's everything I love about Marshalls at the volume I can play at. Just to give you a reference, and I didn't say this, no one asked, so I didn't have a way to disclose it. You just heard me play. I didn't mute this mic. I didn't mute this mic the entire time. You want to know why? That tone you heard, that volume, Okay. Right now I'm talking at 68.9 decibels. Okay. I know you can't see, so you're just gonna have to trust me. Okay. I'm not turning off my mic right now. I'll keep talking. Hold on. Well, it would help if I turn this back on. Okay. Hold on a second. What help if I plug this in? Okay. Okay, let's go that. Turn off the G7. Okay, so this is me talking at 65 to 69 decibels. And this guitar is at 68 to 70 decibels. Think of this, on this mic, you can hear, I'm in the room, right? You can hear the strings right on the mic, right? Just to give you an idea, I'll turn off the volume. Okay, ready? That's how loud I'm running that amp right now, which is why I love it. Do you need a crazy expensive amp? No, but boy, is it fun to play a Marshall sound that actually sounds like a big, ferocious Marshall at a super quiet volume. It's a lot of fun. Todd says, get it to feedback. I don't think it would feedback. To get it to feedback, I'd have to jack the volume just a hair, or I'd have to get the guitar closer to it. So yeah, you'd lose that because I'm running it too quiet. So that's my take on that. But I do have some videos if you want to see, especially the video that's probably going to be the most important. So the video I'm doing next is this M80 versus the 1550, which is when I talked to Magnatone. I think I told you guys this. The request I had for them was, could they send me both amps? Could I A/B them to figure out which one I liked better? And so in the video, I will honestly tell you guys which one I think's better and why. And when I say that, like a lot of things, I'm going to give you two compelling reasons. One, why this is slightly better and why the other one's better. And then you'll be able to decide from those two compelling reasons what really fits in your world. I can tell you right now, but if it's all about getting it super quiet, the Baby M80 will get to get the gain you want at a quieter volume. Okay. I hope that all made some sense. Oh yeah, Tor says I sold my Amplify Nation Wonderland Overdrive and bought the Bad Cat Era 30. Couldn't be more thrilled. Do you consider the Era 30 top 5 GOAT? Yeah, I mean, it's an amazing amp. You know, the Era 30, the thing is with that amp is no reverb. So it was like, I wish it had reverb. That's the only thing I wish. And there is a rumor with Bad Cat that they might make a version with reverb, you know, as a combo, and that would be ideal for me. But you know, it's back to those things. You can't own everything. So, and like I said, I still love my Friedman amps. I mean, like I said, I still love all my amps. No amp that I have goes, oh, okay, now I don't love the other amp. It's just, you know, what I like to play. The Magnatone is, like I told you guys, I'm a huge Slash fan, and there's just something about that, Slash, Joe Bonamassa, like the Marshall gain sound that they get that I like, where it's not high gain, it's mid-high gain. It's really cool. So, but it's nuts. And then, like I said, we'll get to it. I shouldn't spend too much time here because we're going to be doing the video. Yuli, I hope I'm saying the name correctly. Yuli says, is the Magnatone better than the new JCM 900? Again, we don't like the word better, right? Because that's not a fair fight. What I will tell you is I bought the JCM 900 and I returned it. I did not do a video because I returned it. Why did I return it? I just didn't get on with that amp. It's just, you know what? The JCM 900 Studio is, it was not fair of me when I bought it. When I bought it, I already knew I didn't love the full-size JCM 900, but I thought, oh, with reverb, and the JCM 900 always had a decent clean, and maybe this does something more than the JCM 900. And what I learned from the JCM 900 Studio is, if you don't like the 900, you're not going to like the Studio version, the small one. And that's the takeaway I got from it. It's not that it's bad. If you do like the 900, I think that you have a compelling reason to buy the 900 Studio. But no, I bought it from Sweetwater and then I returned it. So that's it. So comparatively speaking, the only advantage to me would be it's a lot less expensive and it says Marshall on it, which is always nice. But if I'm talking about the Studio Series amps, I think still like the 800 the most, because if you need more gain, you can always throw more gain in it. But at this point with the Studio Series Marshalls, the Vintage Studio is probably my favorite because just throw pedals in front of it. That's kind of like the thing, right? Because I can never get a Marshall tone at. I'm not running an attenuator on this, so unless you run an attenuator or something. Okay. Let's get to some next subjects and questions. A good time for me to drink some water. Maybe not, because now the screen doesn't show any questions, which is funny. It's refreshing. Not the water, that was refreshing too. How weird is this? Why does it show a weird picture? Okay, we'll go with it. Okay, this came from Antique Rocker. He says, hey, since 1960, what do you feel were the most significant guitar inventions of each decade? Which decade produced the most significant? I have a video on that, so that's kind of tough. Okay, so and the video I did a lot of research and work on. So let me go to that. I don't even know where I would. Let me go to YouTube. Almost feel like I have to watch my own video to tell you what I thought, but I kind of do. So let me type this in. Okay. And 10 inventions that changed electric guitar forever. I put that video out 2 years ago, if you're interested in that. Luckily for me, I'm going to pause it, I probably time-stamped it. And I did. I talk about clickbaity jerkness if I did. I clickbaited with number 1, number 2, number 2, number 1. Okay. So I just want to tell you that video is what you really should watch, because it's what in that video I can tell you what I learned was I did a video 10 inventions that changed guitar forever, and what you really realize from that video is that there's no significant inventions that changed the guitar movement in any way post like 1990. It really just kind of dumps off after that. So when you think about inventions like the tremolo system, obviously a massive invention that it's spawned an entire type of music. Oh, by the way, don't want to get too sidetracked, but Michael Allen says, hey, the Slash SL5 Marshall does plexi at a reasonable volumes. It absolutely does. The Marshall Slash SL5 is an amazing amp, which is crazy why Marshall stopped making it. But anyways, go back to subject. So the tremolo system, I think, is a significant invention for sure. What else? I'm looking at guitars behind me right now to steal some ideas. Carbon fiber rods, the dual action truss rod. Those are huge innovations that change guitar. Maybe not what you're going after in this question, but that's essentially, think about this. The truss, think about the way I look at it as someone who's like repairing guitars or just a fanatic of guitars. Things like a truss rod made guitars extremely affordable to the masses. Improving the truss rod. Dual action truss rods made it to where you could argue, somebody probably will. You could argue that they made guitars worse because before they would pick better selections of wood to make a neck, and now they just kind of make a neck out of anything and stuck rods in it. Same with carbon fiber rods. You can reinforce. You can make garbage wood straight for the most part. That to me is huge because it makes guitars that are inexpensive very, very good. Okay. A perfect example would be like when somebody talks about roasted maple necks. That's a modern thing. That would be post 1990. I think roasted maple necks are a huge influence on the guitar market, improving it, because that invention sounds stupid, but it's really what it does is I think what we'll hopefully see is all the inexpensive guitars to just get their necks roasted. Because at this point, they'll get the process down to where they could just take wood that's basically was alive 2 days ago. This is a joke. And make it more stable and stick some carbon fiber rods and a truss around it, and you have a guitar that lasts forever. So I think inventions like that, obviously the humbucker is a huge invention that changed everything, right? Huge. Susan says CNC machines, absolutely, and the implementation. Man, that's it. More water for me or vodka. You have to decide what it is. The fact that they implemented them so well in the system, in the industry as well, are important. But I think of those inventions as being more the improvements of guitar. Somebody says stainless steel frets. I think that's a huge improvement to the guitar, I believe. And I mean, that's polyurethane finishes, right? Steve Cassidy guitar says poly finishes. I think so, right? The idea to do a finish quicker. And if you notice, most of the things I praise are the things that made guitars more affordable. And there is an argument there. A lot of people don't think guitars, like that's not the sexiness of guitars. The guitars, the vintage guitars are better, or high-end guitars or expensive guitars are better. I just don't believe that. I believe that, as I've lived so far in this life to where, like I said this before, when I started playing guitar and I play guitar today, the reason why I love guitar today is because I'm just as happy when I play it as I did when I was 16 years old. The joy that it gives me today is no less. Talk about that. I mean, think about this. There's probably no drug you could take that if you took it every day for your whole life, that is just as potent today as it was, when you started out. Guitar, to me, the joy that I get playing guitar this morning is the same joy I got when I started playing guitar. It is that powerful to me. It has never left me. I mean, sure, I get points where I get frustrated when I'm playing or I burn out, but I'm talking about the joy of guitar. And why that matters is, if that's true, which I'm promising you guys that statement is true, then the fact that I play a boutique expensive guitar today and I played a crappy guitar when I was 16, then the guitar doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. It didn't change the way I feel. I didn't play a guitar when I was 20 years old and constantly strum chords going, oh, this crappy guitar. If I just had a good guitar, my life would be great. I never thought that. I've never thought that. The desire to want a better guitar, it mostly came from just at some point from real life things. Like, this guitar hindered me here. It's good, but if I had lower action, or if I could do, the tremolo would stay in tune better, it would function better for me, then maybe that would be improved. Those steps came very quickly. Once you got to a guitar that just wasn't entry level, it was like, bam, there I am, I'm fine. Every purchase after that, that's just the desire to own a cool thing, man. That's just the desire to own, probably the same thing that makes somebody buy a Rolex watch, besides maybe the whole collectability, and it's worth money later. But I'm talking about the whole look at me, this is such a cool guitar to own. Look at this. It's Brian Setzer in lime gold. It's so crazy. It brings me joy looking at it on the wall. That's how cool it is. But that to me is not a real important component of guitar playing. And so I've never really found it. I've never really care. My joke is when they make a guitar, like the Herman Lee, somebody goes, is the Herman Lee any good? Well, it's $7,000. If it wasn't good, wouldn't it be stupid? Wouldn't the whole idea be stupid? Right. Right. You could buy a really good guitar for $700. I mean, really for $300, but $700. And if somebody buys a $7,000 guitar and it didn't even play right, wouldn't you think that would just be beyond ridiculous, right? Ridiculous. So of course a $7,000 guitar is good. Of course a $3,000 guitar is good. Of course a $1,500 guitar is good. Now, when I say that, does some still have issues? Of course, nothing's perfect. We're not saying that. But what I'm saying is that I don't believe, for the most part, you buy a $5,000 guitar because this is where the guitar finally gets good. And I hear somebody talk about that all the time. True story just happened to me a week ago, and I was just talking about this morning at coffee. I was on the phone with some people at Sweetwater, because I'm going to Sweetwater to do some content. And obviously, some of you guys know that I'm doing a podcast interview. And one of the things was I had in the background as I was talking to them with my wife, I had my Steve Vai Universe swirl, the 1991 swirl that I have. And one of the guys at Sweetwater was like, oh, by the way, check this out. And what he had was a 1990s Universe neck, because a lot of those Universes got destroyed, on a RG 7620 body. So, and he had it dipped. So essentially I thought it was actually really cool looking, like adaptation of his, kind of his version of what a Universe should be. And he was like, isn't it great? And I said, oh, I love them. And do you love the neck? And yeah, we're having this good time. And this morning I was talking to my wife about the difference between, admitting the truth, which is it's just really cool to own a childhood dream, which is the 1991 Universe, and being that dumbass jerk that says, "Oh, but the tone, buddy, dude, the your body that came from another guitar is never gonna have the tone that a 1991 Universe." Like, that stupidity just drives me nuts. Like a 62 Strat, the magic is in the dirt, that's in the scratches in it, whatever that is. I cool as hell, dude. Do I think someone who has a 60 Strat is cool? Yeah, that's a cool guitar. Like, that's a iconic, amazing guitar. Do I think that guitar possesses a tone that can't be achieved anymore? No, I think that's silly talk. You should own the thing you love. And if you make enough money, you should enjoy it. You know, I don't get yachts. I don't get fancy cars. So when people get money, like when a rock star buys a Ferrari and he buys a giant 10,000 square foot mansion, I'm sorry, I don't relate. Not because I don't have those things. It's just, if I had the money, it's not on my list of things I would give a shit about. But when he goes, "Oh, I got a 1960s blah, blah," I'm like, "Oh yeah, that's pretty cool." Right? That's a cool guitar. But my point is, and this is my whole point, this whole tirade is, I think that we shouldn't confuse, and this is the point of the innovations in guitar, we shouldn't confuse making a good guitar and what makes a guitar just iconically cool or different or unique or fun to own or see, right? And that's the difference. And I've said this before. In fact, here's what's funny. You know, my wife said something to me that kind of hit me hard, and I don't want to give up the whole thing because it's for a video, right? So obviously I told you I'm going to Sweetwater. We're going there. I'm going to interview the CEO of Sweetwater, just like I interviewed the CEO Guitar Center. And we'll see how it goes. Just like the CEO Guitar Center. We'll see how it goes. You never know. I got some hard questions for him. So we'll see. But when we're there, you know, hey, I make content, so let's make some good content. And one of the things I was talking about was a guitar, and I was talking about, what about guitars for beginners versus guitars for professionals? And my wife said, "Oh, that's easy." And I said, "Oh yeah, it's easy." I go, "Okay, so when you think of guitar for professional, what do you think?" And this is what she said. She said, "Oh, that's easy. Epiphone." And I said, No, like professional players." She says, "Yeah, Epiphone." And I'm like, "What?" Thinking, have you seen YouTube? Have you seen channels? Have you watched any of my shows? What the hell are you talking about? And my wife says, "No, at the store, she sold as many guitars as me, pretty much." She goes, "Working musicians who played bought Epiphones. That's what they bought from us." And I'm like, "No." And she goes, "Yeah." She's like, the Intel engineers, they bought PRSs and Gibsons and Fenders and Gretches, and the working musicians, they bought Epiphones. And I thought, oh my God, I think she's right. Yeah, working musicians buy Epiphones. And collectors collect Gibsons. And you know, I guess I've kind of said that in a different way, a couple ways on the show. And definitely when I've done interviews or reviews of Gibsons, I say this all the time. I collect Gibsons because they're awesome and they're fun. But I guess if I only cared about playing and nothing else, and not the cool factor and not the, hey, I work hard and I deserve, I guess if those don't factor in, I'm just playing an Epiphone. So, the i8 P8 in chips. What is this? This is one of those things I got to figure out. It's i8 P8 chips. Oh, I figured it out. This is like the license plate game sometimes with you guys. What the hell? So it's the letter I, 8, the number 8, P, the number 8 again, NT chips. i8 paint chips. I would have lost the game in the car. Keep in mind, because half of you are like, "You idiot, it's i8 paint chips." But anyways, it's i8 paint chips says, "Hey, what days are you going to Sweetwater?" I can't tell you guys. Here's why. So you got to understand, I'm on a YouTuber world. Let me explain the YouTuber world for you guys. I leave in the afternoon. I go straight to Sweetwater. I will get there late at night. I will go to the hotel room. I will wake up in the morning. I will be filming straight from like that morning until the wee hours of the night. In fact, there's a possibility that we'll never get through our actually itinerary. Then I go back to the hotel and I fly right back. So I'm just there I'm there just to do the interview. But I've also booked in some content, including some deep dives of some things. By the way, some of you guys will be happy. We booked in some deep dive content for the guitars that you guys are like, "Why don't you ever have those on the channel?" So we built a remote deep dive work kit that I can take guitars and do the guitars there. And so we'll do bonus content too, because, hey, I'm there. I might as well do the bonus content. So that's what's going to happen. So it's even if I told you when I was there, you guys, we won't see me because I'm going to spend most of my time in rooms hiding, working on the interviews and doing all this stuff. So I wish I had time to sit and hang out and be there for a couple of days. I just don't have it. It's not in my schedule. It's not available in my time. This was it's just like when I interviewed Gabe. It's like when the CEO is available. I mean, keep in mind, these guys run between the CEO of Guitar Center. I want you to be aware of this so you understand what's going on now. Interviewing the CEO of Guitar Center, interviewing the CEO of Sweetwater. Those two CEOs, between the two of them, those two companies, they operate 50% of the guitar retail in the United States. So let's just say they kind of matter. So they're very gracious with their time, but when I say gracious, they're not going to be like, hey, why don't you come hang out for a couple of days and we'll all have hot dogs and ice cream or whatever. So I don't know what people, I guess, normally eat. I guess in my mind, I guess it's hot dogs and ice cream. Anyways, we're not going to get through stuff if I don't get moving. Let's do this. Let's Unplayed Video Game says, hey, inspired by you, I bought a JP13 7-string. I have that guitar. It's awesome. Neck is too thin. They are thin. Love guitar otherwise. Yeah, and keep in mind, that's probably one of the thicker ones of the JP series. All the unfinished JP necks or 7-string necks are too thin for me. Can you recommend a luthier to rebuild or replace the neck that's thicker? Don't do it. You'll be sorry if you did. If it's the USA one, you just tank the value of it. So you're better off getting like an Ibanez RG, any neck. So there's no neck. Okay, so you understand. Just do you understand the concept of the JP and the JP and the Majesty? I've already talked to other builders who like Kiesel, and I asked if I could get a neck as thin as the JP, and they can't do it. No one can do it. No one can get a neck that thin. Mostly because they're afraid that it's that once they shave the necks down too thin, the carbon rods could be exposed, or not have enough wood between the rod and the obviously the end of the wood. So if you don't like the neck, I would actually move that guitar on and go find another neck. The good news is this: every neck, there's no neck thinner than the JP and the Majesty necks that I know of. Barring some crazy, some builder making something by hand out there crazy that you guys don't know about, but production wise. So I would get out of the guitar and get in any other 7-string because all of them are going to be way thicker. So yes, the RG7620 neck is much, much thicker. So, and to give you an idea, I have the original, obviously the original Universe Swirl, and I've had the original Universe Black with green dots, which was more like the RG7620 in the neck. The original Universe Swirls are very thin, much like the Petrucci. In fact, the Petrucci neck carve and my Universe Swirl neck carve are very similar. So, which makes me understand why Ibanez made the necks thicker immediately after that. I'm sure there was issues with the necks being that thin. Old Man Fran says, happy Friday, Phil, and the chat almost over for me, 11 p.m. in the UK. Anywho, Phil, are there any ways to convert a 6-screw Strat to a hardtail? Sure, of course. You don't have to do it physically. You don't have to take the bridge off and then bolt in. I mean, you could fill it in with wood and glue it all in there and try to seal it, but I wouldn't do that. What I would do is I would just put 5 springs on it, compress the springs down as not as hard as they go, but pretty much as hard as they can go. So the bridge was just against the body, as hard as it could go, and then shove foam in that thing so you don't hear those springs, and that's going to be pretty darn close to a hardtail, especially if you put some foam underneath and above those springs. It's one of those, that's 90% of the way there. Is it the same as a hardtail sonically? Well, no, because there's a hollowed out piece of wood there and there's springs, even if they're muted. Is it going to sound like a hardtail? Yeah, it'll operate like a hardtail. As far as anyone's concerned, I wouldn't worry about it then. I would be like, it's fine. And that's what I would do. Christian says, hey, have you noticed an increase in other YouTubers dropping videos on Fridays around podcasters time? I definitely have. Coincidence? I don't know. I don't know when everybody drops content. I don't I don't know because I don't schedule content. I mean, obviously the Friday show is like I told you. The Friday show is because this is when I used to take my daughter to school. This is why Friday was a thing. Friday was a thing because, as you guys know, it was set so that right after I picked her up from school, I could do the show, and that's kind of the whole reason I did it. But that's why I do the Friday show. But all my other content is not. It's proprietary. Can I say that? Does that sound stupid? Feels stupid to say it out loud. There is a strategy. Absolutely. Let me put it this way. Without a doubt, 100%, there is a strategy to when I drop content, but it sure isn't by time of day or day of the week. So there is a reason why I drop when I do. I'd be lying if I didn't tell you it was way thought out all the time. It is way thought out, but it's not. And so if YouTubers are dropping by the time of the week, well, then I think that I would like you to know which YouTubers. Can I say something jerky? And then we'll call it a day on this. If you're noticing that YouTubers are dropping at certain times all the time, I would only be interested to know if their videos do better than mine on average, because then maybe I'd pay attention to what they're doing. But I find most YouTubers, they're just like everybody, they're blindly trying things. And like I said, and I'm not saying my strategy, so you know, I'm not saying like, oh, and if they did it my way, they'd do better. My way might kill their channel, but my way it does have an effect on my channel in a very positive way. And it's a reason why content sometimes doesn't come out for a little while, and then sometimes content comes out rapidly. It's all done because of what I think will perform better based on what's going on at the time. But no, I haven't noticed. Nick says, hey, Phil, I asked before about a road worn made Mexico or USA Strat. You cautioned me on the 7.25 radius. Yep, 7.25 radius. I found a 2012 player road worn with a 9.5. Oh yeah, that's good. Like I said, nothing wrong with 7.25 radius. It's just like I said, in 7.25 radius, setting up hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them for customers. What I found is that if it's all the world lines up, the universe does perfectly, they love it. And if not, they hate it. And one of the main reasons is, especially on a 7.25, is you have to take off the neck to adjust the truss rod is a pain in the ass. So you're adding that problem so you don't want to deal with it. I once said this once on a podcast, I'll say it again. I'm never going to tell you that flatter radius fretboards are better than rounded radius. In other words, I'll never tell you that 12 inch is better than 9.5 and 9.5 is better than 7.25. That's because that's not true. But what I will tell you is that it's easier to get a guitar to play better the flatter the radius of the fretboard. That's just a fact of setting up thousands of guitars. That's just a fact. I can set up a 12 inch radius much better than I can a 9.5 than a 7.5, giving all things being equal. In other words, if all three guitars are great, then all three guitars will be set up great. If all three guitars, like in other words, what I'm saying is if you gave me a neck from the same manufacturer and it had a flaw, like let's say the frets aren't perfectly 100% level and the neck isn't perfect in every way, and it was 12 and one was 9.5 and one was 7, I guarantee you the 12 will play better than the 9.5 and the 9.5 will play better than the 7.25. It's just how it works, which is why I've said this before. So many of you keep saying, and by the way, when anyone says anything different, I'd like to point out, I could say, well, I've set up thousands of guitars, I know, but I've also been to dozens and dozens of factories where this was explained to me why they're doing what they're doing, which is, like I said, I'm going to Cortec next, which is the largest manufacturer in Indonesia. And this is why I tell you guys all the time, when you see these $149 guitars and you're like, how do they do it? And I go 16-inch radius fretboard, 20-inch radius. And they go, what? Why so flat? Well, because they're not dumb. The flatter you get it, the easier to press the frets flat, the easier to get the neck right. They can get a lesser quality material to perform better, or better yet, a better way to put it is they could get they'll have less problems if they introduce less variables. So that's so I just want to make sure we're all clear because okay. So I'm not saying the 7.25 is bad. I'm just saying 9.5 in my experience with the road warns is some of the necks were amazing and some were not, and you're always taking that chance with those guitars. And so a 9.5, it's not that I think it's better. I just think it would be given those two necks being equal, in other words, not amazing necks, I would trust the 9.5 over the 7.25. But if both were amazing, it wouldn't matter. Does that make sense? It says Texas special pickups. Love those pickups. But maple fretboard, which isn't my preference. Any thoughts? So you don't like maple fretboards? As you know, I'm a big not maple fretboard fan. I don't remember. Look, maple fretboards are not all equal. What I mean by that is some are clear coated and some are not. I believe that the way the road one is, I'm gonna take a look at it. That they have a finish on them and they wear it off, right? So we want to talk about road worn MIM. Because look, looks, I think it's a looks thing. So if you prefer rosewood over maple, that's great. That's a looks thing, vice versa. So I'd say don't worry about it. But where you will notice a difference is when they clear coat over, whether it's nitro or polyurethane, over a maple neck. That's an experience that a lot of players just do not get on if you don't like it. In other words, if your fingers rub the neck and it's basically paint, right? You're rubbing your finger on a finish. So I'm going to look at the Strat, and I'm looking at the Strat right now. I'll share with you guys. So yeah, it is exactly what I thought. It's, here, I'll show you. So it's got clear coat right here. And then of course they sand it all off, and mostly in the areas you play. I mean, I'm never going to tell anybody to buy anything they don't love. Nothing ever seems to come good from that. Look, if it's concession, because obviously, look, all of us have a monetary concession. I mean, obviously, I don't care what your income level is. Everybody's got a stopping point. It's like, nope, can't pay for that mentally or physically. Just can't do it. So I understand at some point you're like, hey, I'm trying to get the thing I love. I will tell you this, especially if you're like a lot of us that are sitting on a pile of guitars, and whether that be 5 or 6 guitars or 2 guitars or 20, you're not in a rush. Right? I'd wait to get what you want. I wait all the time. You guys hear me say all the time, I want one of these. I want a V guitar really bad. Everybody's like, oh, why don't you get this? When it comes, it comes. When the right price and the right guitar at the right time comes, then I'll justify that purchase. But I am not going to force a purchase on myself that just makes me flip it because I'm not happy with it. So that would be my advice to you is, hey, let's just be friends for a minute, right? We're friends. And if you were my buddy Ralph and you said, hey, should I get it? I go, well, do you really want it? He goes, I don't mind this. I'm like, nah, that's not how you approach it. A funny story, just to give you some weight in this, is my mother, she passed away many years ago. And she retired from American Airlines. And when she retired, she decided that she was going to buy her last car. Now, this only means something because I'm sure a lot of people say, this is going to be my last car. Especially if you have parents, they're going to say, this is my last house. This is my last. Well, this was my mother's last car. This is the last car she bought in her life. And the story goes like this. She goes, hey, will you help me go buy a car? She knew I used to work for a large finance company that did auto loans. I'm not going to say I could go and teach the car salesman a lesson. Look, like Shauna says, there's a reason why they give you free balloons and donuts, right? They're very good at what they do. And I said, sure, I'll go with you. And she goes, I want an SUV. And I said, okay, she goes, what do you think I get? And I'm like, I don't know. I like Hondas. I like Toyotas. But get whatever you want. She goes, well, look at a Toyota. So we went and looked at a Toyota 4Runner, and she test drove it. And you got to understand, I want to point out that she was buying this car cash. Okay. So she had the money to buy a new car cash. This was her big purchase. She was like, she's like, okay, I'm retiring and this is my big car. And we test drove the Toyota 4Runner. And I said, what do you think? And she goes, it's fine, I guess. And I go, okay, well, you loving it? She goes like, it's fine. And I go, well, kind of should love it, right? She goes, I don't know. She goes, well, let's look at something else. She goes, what else? And I go, well, there's Nissan across the street. We went across the street and we test drove like a Pathfinder. She test drives the Pathfinder. And I said, what do you think? And she goes, it's fine. And I go, okay. And she goes, you pick. And I go, I don't want to pick. And she goes, no, just pick one. And I go, Mom, this car is the most expensive car you ever bought in your life. You shouldn't go, oh, that's fine. You should go, holy crap, I can't believe I get to own this car. Every day when you walk out to drive it to the grocery store, you should say, oh my God, I am so blessed to live in a world where I own this car. And she goes, well, I don't feel that way. And I go, well, you need to find the car that makes you feel that way. My mom then we went and we drove. And I said, what about a BMW? And she goes, Oh, I don't know if I can afford a BMW. And I go, well, let's go look at one. What if you test drive a BMW and you go, this is crap. I should get the other thing. So long story short, she test drove and she found a used BMW, and she bought it. Okay, it was a certified used. Now, a lot of you are going to have opinions, as everybody does, like, oh, the Toyota is better quality than the BMW. Look, I'm not disagreeing with that, okay? But I will tell you this, and I've told a version of this story in the past. My mother always dressed in nines. My mom always had her hair done, her makeup done, always dressed. When she retired from American Airlines, they gave her a certificate that said, to Marilyn McKnight for working for 25 years and never wearing the same outfit twice. That's what her certificate said. Okay. Yes. PJ says M5. She got an M5. She got the M5 and certified used. And here's what is funny about the story. The next time I went to her house, she had this BMW hat and this stuffed animal, this bear, this BMW bear. And I go, what is this? My mom doesn't buy this kind of stuff. I go, what is this? And she goes, oh, I went and got the oil change on the BMW. And when I was waiting, I got a hat and a bear and a keychain. And I go, you don't wear hats. She goes, oh, I know, but it's a BMW hat. What I'm trying to say is you should buy a guitar that makes you feel the way my mom felt about that car. That was my mom's last car. She owned it for, I can't remember. I want to say, hold on, 15 years. And then before she passed away. So I'm not saying every purchase should be that. I'm just saying, boy, every purchase should be kind of like that. By the way, somebody said an M5 and I said, yes, I'm sorry. It's the X5. It was an X5. It was an SUV. Yes, she bought a BMW X5. I don't know why I couldn't remember that. I apologize. But the point of the story is if you wait and you should get what you want is what I'm trying to say. And I've kind of learned that lesson too. And I break my own rule. So you see me do it all the time. I got this and it's not exactly what I want. And you watch and you get to watch me in real time over the years and you go, Phil, do you still have that blah, blah, blah? And I go, nope. Well, what did you think was going to happen? What did I think was going to happen as soon as I compromised? And if you don't have to, look at these guitars that I have. They're beautiful. Why would I jump on something I'm not ready for? So I would say, you know what I would do? Nick, you want a Road Worn guitar, get a Road Worn guitar, get the radius you want, get the neck you want, get what you want. It will show up. I promise you. The saying is, we say it all the time, right? The deals run out before the money ever does. Let's see. Pearson Instruments says, hey, Phil, I was looking at the PRS NF53 and I noticed that they have one of those old-fashioned two-saddle bridges. Why would they not use the individual adjustable saddles on the new model? It just confuses me. So a couple of things about that. So that bridge is actually from the Vela, right? So if we go to the PRS Vela, so there's something that you guys should know, just so you know, okay? I've said this before, I will say it again. I am not a huge fan of Paul Reed Smith. What I mean by that is I love Paul Reed Smith guitars. I like the company. Paul Smith is entertaining. He's interesting. There's a reason why I've only interviewed him a couple times and I interview like Jack and stuff. He's just a little too much for me sometimes. Personally, okay? And here's what I'll tell you. I've told you guys this many times. Being around Paul Smith, as many times I've been around him, the one thing I will always say forever is whatever he says, half of it I think is crazy, but I think he believes all of it. Okay? I honestly believe he believes all of it. So here's why this is interesting to your question. So if we look at the PRS Vela, which I'm going to share with you right now, if you look here, the PRS Vela bridge, there you go. As you can see right here, this bridge is the exact same bridge that's on the NF53. So what I'll do, if you don't mind, is we'll go to PRS NF53. And there's more to the story. It's I know what you're thinking. Well, of course, they repurposed their one bridge to another bridge. That's not the story. So don't get ahead of it. Okay, here we go. Let's compare. So contrast, compare. So this is off the SE. So this is the bridge that you're talking about, two saddle bridge, right here. String, it's not string body, it's top loaded. As you can see, if we go here to the Vela, it's the same bridge. It's the same bridge. In fact, look at that. The picture moves. Look, the bridge looks like it's not even moving. I couldn't align that up any better. Look, I want to keep doing that. Look at that. That's pretty cool. I'm impressed with myself for lining that up so well. So to answer your question, why did they use it? Well, they used it because it's on the Vela. So you're like, oh, they just repurposed the bridge they had. The interesting part about that is Paul liked that bridge so much. That's not designed by Pure S Guitars. That was a bridge designed by somebody else. Paul liked that bridge so much that they licensed that bridge from somebody else. Look, they could make their own bridge. Pure S doesn't have to use that bridge. They could make a tele looking bridge. They could do something else. So for some reason, Paul, I've heard the story from Paul. At some point when ranting about something, he explained he found that bridge. I think at a guitar show, some builder had it on his guitars at a guitar show. He liked the bridge so much that he licensed it and put it on the Vela. So to answer your question, probably the most important way is Paul likes it. So in Pure S world, that's enough, right? I mean, the owner of the company likes it. He likes it. He legitimately likes it because nobody, as you know, because you're in the guitar business too, nobody's going to pay a royalty or pay somebody else that they don't have to. I mean, look, that's why Fender look at Fender. Fender used to use all kinds of pickups, just like Gibson used to all kinds of other brands. Try to name me a Fender model that's not an artist model, which means the artist picked it. Try to name me a Fender guitar right now that has a Seymour Duncan, a DiMarzio, a Lace, a different brand pickup of any kind. Everything is Fender pickups unless the artist demands that it has some other branded pickup. Same with Gibson, right? Somebody at Gibson Custom Shop ratted them out and told me that they have this whole closet, like it's a room, but it's like a really large closet full of like bare knuckles and every brand of pickups. And they were told they can't use any of them anymore. They got to use Gibson only pickups. I'm like, oh, on a custom shop level, this is like artists asking for this stuff. So unless it's a signature guitar. So brands don't like to use other brand stuff, right? That's why everybody uses their same generic tuners and then says it's our brand tuner, right? So there's something they like about that bridge. My guess is probably the way it transfers sound, especially since one of the things that I know PRS is very aware of, especially when probably making a tele copy, is PRS guitars are very widely accepted now in the Nashville community, in the session players realm, as being recorded really well. I'd like to point out that's not something that somebody at PRS told me. I went to Nashville many times, but these two first times in particular, my buddy Thor, that's his real name, my buddy Thor took me around and we met a lot of people in Nashville. But more importantly, I went around Nashville and I met a bunch of people, and what I learned from talking to the session players there was that they all say for tracking in the studio, they really like PRS guitars for the tuning stability, because again, their boss, who's usually a producer or a famous country artist, doesn't really want stuff that doesn't sound perfect. So they tend to track a lot of the guitars with PRS guitars for their intonation purposes. The intonation's so perfect. And so I can't imagine PRS would pick that bridge knowing that fact there, and then also knowing that that's something those musicians might not use. So I guess my answer to the question is, why do you use it? He likes it, and obviously, in my assessment would be the intonation. I could not find anything wrong with the Vela that I deep dived or the NF53s that I deep dived in intonation. That may not sound like a big deal, but there's some guitars that I have had issues with intonation, and so not very many, but definitely not those guitars. So that's my answer. So the detail of why they specifically like that bridge, I can't tell you exactly what it is that he's loving about that bridge, but I can tell you that he's drinking his own Kool-Aid. He likes it, because that's why he's putting it on multiple models. Okay, Michael says, is it just me, or do very few of these import clone companies make SG style guitars? Are SGs not that popular enough? Thanks for all you do. So, I mean, I don't know if that's true. Obviously, LTD makes the Viper, which is an SG copy. I think Harley Benton makes an SG copy. I don't know if ER does, but I'm pretty sure Firefly at some point made an SG copy. So some of them are. I don't think it's predominant. It's probably just because the Les Paul just sells better. I don't know. I can only tell you one reason why someone doesn't use an SG, and that's Heritage Guitars. Heritage Guitars does not make an SG. And the reason, my nose is itching. Sorry. The reason I know they don't make an SG, well, I know the reason I know is that they don't make one. But the reason why I know this is because I asked them specifically, like, hey, you guys sent me that custom Heritage. If you made me an SG, I'd play the hell out of that. No more Gibsons on my walls. If you gave me an SG, because I like Heritage. I like the brand. I don't need to promote $1 billion company who doesn't even support my channel in any way. There's no upside for me helping Gibson out. But they specifically told me, look, the original deal with Gibson is they get to make a Les Paul style and an ES-235 style guitar, and that's what they're locked to in the agreement. And they cannot make anything else. So they can't make any other body shapes because that's the original agreement, was what the original Heritage signed, or the original company. The new company is not, that owns them, is bought Heritage from the original owners. The original owners had the deal with Gibson, and it can't be changed. So that's why Heritage specifically doesn't make an SG or any other Gibson shapes, because they're just locked to those two designs. That's all they can do. But I don't know. I mean, look at this. Let's be clear. We know why anyone who makes anything Gibson doesn't make something Gibson. Is because Gibson tries to sue everyone for anything all the time. It's a headache. And I just say that, like, if you notice how I say that is, I don't know. I like I said, I don't have an opinion about that. I personally think as long as people aren't being confused by product, I don't think it's a big deal, but what do I know? Cat's Music Journey says, hey, Phil, I finally managed to put out a video on Harley Benton Tweed amp build. Thanks for the advice. 1 hour edit, 10-minute footage was spot on. And have a great weekend. P.S. OFC, it's underperforming. So the video is underperforming. That's because no one cares about that. When it comes to content, there's a thing that people don't understand, and I don't know why they don't understand this. Because there's a couple things I wouldn't say. I'm definitely not this isn't my field of expertise. Like I said, I work on guitars, and then I started making content, so I had to learn content. But what I would tell you is that when it comes to making a video, I always look at it like this way. The product, when you make a gear video, the product is the guest. And just like on a talk show, right? So if you get a guest that everybody's interested in and excited about, you're going to get a lot of eyeballs, So if you're talking, who's the hot thing in Hollywood this week, and you've got them on your show, you're going to get views. And if you're talking to a third-rate comic who hasn't been relevant in 10 years, you're not going to get views. Same thing goes with product. So I would always ask, when people say, oh, this video underperformed, they always internalize that to something they did, or the algorithm, which is, the best advice I have about algorithm is audience. So when you go, oh, the algorithm didn't like it, I go, that's because the audience didn't like it. You just need to pick something that people are interested in. If you want views, if that's what you're after. Everybody's got to go after whatever they're interested in. Elroy says, hey, Phil, on the market for a short scale guitar, but something middle in scale, as the USA made one from 1977 to 1983. Anything recently made I could buy? There's not a whole lot of short scale guitars on the market. If you're talking about 23.5 inch, 22.5 inch scale guitars, obviously most of the 22.5 inch scale guitars that are readily available are going to be the Minions from Jackson or the Mini Squires. Even Fender made an actual Fender one early 2000s, but those are now highly collectible and you can't find them. So yeah, those are a little tougher to find, and really tough to find 23.5 inch scale. But they're out there, and if anyone has suggestions for him, suggest them to me, and I might do a deep dive on them. As short scale guitars is something I'm interested in. I'm interested in not only because I think short scale instruments as a whole always got pigeonholed as like, oh, for kids. But I think there's a lot of musicians who really enjoy short scale guitars and basses for a lot of reasons. I sure do. There's something fun about them to play, especially when they play well. And so I'd like suggestions as well. Volfi with a Volf, I don't know. You know what it is. Bunch of V's and a 1 at the end. Says, I have learned so much through your videos. Thank you so much for your hard work. You are great. Man, super. Thank you for that. By the way, due to your tips, I just got a 72 Gibson SG. Thanks. Oh, yeah. Well, I'm a huge SG fan. and I was late to the game on SGs. I think it was, it's the shiny thing versus the non-shiny thing. I start out, Strats are better than teles because they just look shinier and they looked more cool to me. Gibson Les Pauls were cooler than SGs because the same thing. I just thought they looked cooler to me. And somebody says, what's a Jaguar? Jaguar would be 24-inch scale flat. But I think a Fender Mustang, is 24-inch scale as well. So those would be 24-inch scale. Those would be cool. Not quite 23 and a half, but at that point, barely noticeable, but not, obviously going to feel a little bit bigger than a 22 and a half. So those are some things. Anyways, back to your thing on the SGs. So I'm glad you got an SG and I'm glad you like it. 72 is a great year. That's cool. And so I'm glad. Thank you for the compliments, and I'm excited you liked your SG. Mighty Guitar Mod said, so in your world, CEOs eat hot dogs and ice cream. Yes, in my world, that's what I picture they eat. No, I have no idea why I said that. It's one of those things, one of the things about a live show is, there's like, let's just say what's great about this. And I took to it late. You guys enjoyed the show or figured out what was making the show interesting, I think, before I did by any means. There's no video where I say that and I would have not edited that out, right? Yeah, I'm going to meet with the CEO and you like hot dogs and ice cream? Like, chop that out. That's dumb. So yeah, sometimes the dumb stuff gets in when it's live and there's just no way to, just got to go with it. But yes, in my world, CEOs eat hot dogs and ice cream on a daily basis. And then Christian says, hey, what are your thoughts on Guilds and Steinbergers? Steinbergers are okay. I'm not a huge fan of the paddle, Steinberger. I think they're cool. I've played some. I went when I was in Hawaii a couple years ago for my honeymoon. The music store had a couple, and I picked one up, and it was cool. But it's not the most comfortable thing. So I'm like, and I don't stand and play mostly. I sit and play mostly for the work vibe here. And so I'm not a huge fan of that. The Steinberger that I like, the shape I like, well, that's what Kiesel builds. So it's like, you could just get a Kiesel, for that, the Vader, I think. But they're cool. Steinbergers are cool for sure. And when it comes to Guilds acoustics, I really love Guild acoustics a lot. Some of the best acoustics. First of all, best 12 strings ever made when it comes to acoustics, in my opinion. Hands down, whether import or USA, they just massively amazing, huge sounding, full, thick, toned 12-string acoustics. So love their acoustics. Electrics, like the Starfire and stuff, I played some, mostly of stuff I repaired or worked on. Again, very cool, but nothing that's like, oh yeah, I picked that over anything else. But that's also, I haven't probably picked up anything recently I've done. So that's one of those brands, like maybe I'd like to get my hands on that. One of the things that we thought was going to happen and we were wrong, and that's fine, is we thought when the deep dives were, because the deep dives definitely kicked. Yeah, like we've definitely done well. I don't know. At this point, they do views way bigger than we ever hoped they would, and we appreciate you guys on that, that format, which was a risky format to really kind of push and especially thicken it up the way we did, because it gets a little technical and technical gets boring and you guys drop out. But we thought by this time more companies would be like, yeah, we want to be in this atmosphere, and we do get a couple from time to time. Like we just recently had a company reach out. I got to respond to them and say, hey, they're like, yeah, we'd like to have a deep dive. I'm like, cool. But like I said, I spend more time when I deal with companies, I spend more time with them telling us that they don't want to be in a deep dive. Don't take our guitar apart. Just unbox it. Just do an unboxing. We'll just have you do the unboxing. But yeah, Guild is a brand I'd like to have on the show, on the channel for sure. So, all right. We're going to button it up. I have missed almost all of the stuff that Amanda sent. I apologize, Amanda, but it's been a crazy show. I had no idea what I'm doing today. Let's find one that Amanda pulled for me so we can, I at least can, as a one way to say I'm sorry that I didn't grab the screens that she was sending me. So you guys know she sends them to us. So you guys know she's actively kicking butt over there, sending stuff. It's just like I said, I you get the idea. All right. Oh, okay. I don't know. I'll take a swing at this. It says, hi, Phil. I'm selling my gear on Reverb from Latvia for a while, and it seems people are scared to buy from less known countries. Have you bought a guitar from a country you have never been to? So I would say, and I hate saying this, and I'll explain my thoughts because I obviously don't want to hurt anyone. I don't buy from any countries outside the United States. I don't buy, if it's listed on Reverb, it happens to me all the time. I don't even buy from Canada. I bought one guitar. I did a video on that. I bought a BC Rich STE from Canada, and it took like a month to get here. And that was a little too much for me emotionally. Like, not because I'm like, I can't wait for this guitar. I was just like, that's like a freaky feeling. You know, you put out this money, not to a company, but to a person. And then it's like, it's got to go through customs or whatever the hell it took. It took forever. So if you look back, you'd have to look at the video, the BC Rich video. It's a yellow STE3. If you look at that video, that's when I did it. So I'll give you a reference. You're like, well, when was this? That's the reference of that. I kind of feel like it was 2021, 2020, somewhere on there, 2021. Maybe it was because of the COVID stuff. I don't know. But I see a lot of guitars that I love. I'll be scrolling through Reverb a lot and I'll go, wow, that's an amazing guitar. Oh, it's in Japan. I'm not going to buy. Sometimes there's confusion about, I think a lot of people in the States have this problem. We're confused about like, well, it says international shipping, but what is that? You know, like, do they really ship to the US? Because most of us in the US don't want to ship outside the US. Is there going to be fees, right? Am I going to pay, not tariffs so much, but like fees for anything? Of course, there's, every time I've had an issue with Reverb, and this is why I'm saying I'm very, very careful what I'm saying because I don't want to misguide anyone, because I want to clarify here. This is not an informed commentary right now. I don't have any experience here. I have a lot of inexperience, and I think a lot of you too. And so a lot of you probably are thinking like me. I've had a lot of products on Reverb when I went to sell them, and Reverb basically like, oh, scam detected, don't ship this item. And it's always somebody outside the US. It's always like, don't send this outside the US. So I've had a lot of this happen, where I'm like, oh, okay. And I just think, and this is the most important thing, and this is probably the best thing I can tell you. I've had a lot of hell and problems on Reverb as a whole, as a buyer and a seller. And I always point this out, as a buyer and a seller on Reverb, I don't know how many feedbacks I have. Let me look. So this is why I think it's important to have like the reasoning behind stuff. Okay, so let me go to my shop. And what does it say I have? Okay, so I currently have 677 feedbacks on Reverb. Okay, 530 as a seller. Okay, 147 as a buyer, obviously. Okay, and in my last, here's the important part. Out of 677 feedbacks, which are feedbacks given to me, in other words, when I gave someone money or when I sent them a product, 676 are 5 stars. 5 stars. And for those trying to anticipate where I'm going next, and one feedback is 4 stars. Okay? So I think we could trust, whether you like my vibe on my channel or you think Phil's a good guy because I maybe like, I don't know, maybe I'm likable in some way or whatever. Those are stats, right? I can't make somebody give me 5 stars, a 99%. I have a 99% 5-star feedback with 1 4-star feedback. You can click if you want to look at the link and see, verify what I'm telling you. And I'm telling you, it's a shithole out there. So that's a scary thing. It'd be one thing if like, well, I've got some dodgy feedbacks and maybe I'm part of the problem too, and I'm hard to get along with, right? 676 people thought the transaction, whether selling me something or buying from me, was a pleasant experience. And I'm telling you that when I'm buying and selling, 50% of the time I can't stand the person I'm dealing with. 50%. And that's more recent. I would say if you took the last 10 years on Reverb, it would be 80% of the time I've had a good time, 20% bad time. But now it's like 50-50. 50% of the time, there's a problem. I don't know what it is. And so I'm trying to tell you that although I understand the difficulty, like, hey, you know, people in the US aren't buying from me. I'm trying to tell you it's difficult in the US. So when I'm looking at a situation where I'm buying or selling, I'm thinking, all right, it's already kind of difficult. Now I got to add transacting across different country lines, right? And that's where I back off. Now I could be totally wrong in this, okay? And this thought process is mine. And I'd really, really, really appreciate the community finally coming together, not finally, but coming together today, especially in the rebroadcast, and putting comments like, are you kind of apprehensive to buy overseas or sell overseas? Or overseas is not even the problem. In Canada, in Mexico, from Canada, from Mexico. Are you noticing this? And is it so much, it's not so much that I have a problem with another country. It's that the system is already problematic without adding that extra problem. And that's what I'm trying to say. And so I want you to know that in my opinion, it is not you or your country that's the problem. It's not that it's a small country. It's not a country. It's not because it's a country I haven't been to. It's because it's already a pain in the ass here. And it's just one more problem to add to the situation. How do we fix that? I don't know. I don't know how you fix that. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I have a theory. Part of the reason why I accepted to do this this month, where, you know, Sweetwater was like, hey, we want to promote Gear Exchange, which is what we're doing. You know, I'm promoting Gear Exchange. Look, everybody who's been on Gear Exchange or interact on Gear Exchange, which is Sweetwater's kind of Reverb, I think I agree with you 100%. I think you agree with me 100%. It's small. It's not as good as Reverb. There's not as many sellers. There's not as many buyers. The prices aren't as good. It's not as good as Reverb in any way in that argument. You know, when we're talking about the quantity, the quality. But if you notice, I'm not only selling the stuff that I said every week I do, I'm actually selling all my other stuff during the week on Gear Exchange, because on Gear Exchange, like I said, I don't know what the answer is. I just know that for some reason, some vibe has changed on Reverb that feels more like how eBay became, where it's like I'm dealing with people and I think I'm dealing with another person who's passionate about guitars like me. And I'm really just dealing with somebody who's flipping guitars all week. And the problem with that for me is then, you know, they're not really being transparent about that. They're like, hey, I got this guitar and it barely has any marks. And then you get it and it just looks like somebody grabbed it out of a pawn shop, threw it up on Reverb, and then sold it to me. And I'm like, oh, well, you know, I didn't really want to buy it from a store or a mock store kind of thing. But I don't know. That's my thing. So we'll see. And I still believe this. I think right now in this market, you need to use whatever resources you can. So you need to use Reverb, you need to use eBay, you need to use Gear Exchange, and you should use Guitar Center used, and Music Around, just whatever you know. But Vivi says they're scalping in every hobby. Sure, and so you know, I'm not actually upset with scalping per se. I'm not upset with flipping guitars. Look. If you watch the documentary on Norm's Rare Guitars, he started flipping guitars, you know, like, and then he turned into a store. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I'm just saying it's not fun. Actually, you know what? I'm going to say it this way. And then we'll end on this note. And it's because I find the only way to articulate an idea is through a story. When I grew up in Tucson, Arizona, I used to go every Friday to the Tanque Verde swap meet, which ironically used to be on Tanque Verde. Now it's there still, but it's not on Tanque Verde. It's a weird thing, but there you go. Tanque Verde swap meet. You used to go there, and there was always people. It was like yard sales. It was a swap meet. You go there, and there was people selling. Like when I started going there, I used to buy all my GI Joes. That's how I got GI Joes. I would get kids who just got a little older than me. Their parents would sell off their GI Joes at a yard sale. My parents would go on Friday nights, because my dad could drink a beer walking around, you know, when he was around that time. And, you know, and we would look at stuff and I'd buy a used G.I. Joe. And then I kind of grew out of toys. And then I told you, that's where I used to get my bootleg tapes. There was guys who would sell bootleg cassettes. And all my first cassettes ever were bootlegs. You know, the Fat Boys, Motley Crue, Aerosmith, you know, they were bootleg cassettes. They were fakes. You know, this is what I could afford. Okay. Bootleg. There was slowly though, there'd be like a sunglass hut. There'd be guys selling fake sunglasses. And you're like, okay. And then there would be a guy selling fake toys. Okay. And then there would be another guy selling fake toys. And then there would be a guy selling fake shoes. And after a while, you go take a swap meeting. It was like 30% of it was like honest transactions. In other words, people selling their used goods that you had value in. Like, oh, cool, I get a real G.I. Joe that I can't afford. Or I get a real, you know, oh, somebody sold me a used Iron Maiden t-shirt for $2. Like, I couldn't afford an Iron Maiden t-shirt. Like, $2 for an Iron Maiden t-shirt? This is cool, right? And then slowly it was like, oh, it's $8 for the fake Iron Maiden t-shirt from the fakes shop. And then the swap meet mostly became that, resellers or whatever you call it, right? They were selling counterfeit crap. There were people selling you junk. And there was a place for that. I didn't have a problem with it. I told you, I was buying fake tapes. I would buy fake things. But when you went to the swap meet and it was all that, it sure was not fun anymore. It was just like, oh, this is where all the fake crap is. And there's no real finds and no fun here. Reverb feels like that to me now. And I'm just saying that. And again, I'm not saying the gear exchange is better. Obviously, that'd be silly, especially since they're Sweetwater's sponsoring this. So that seems disingenuous. But what I'm trying to say is that I like Reverb. I'm still buying from Reverb. However, there's a vibe that I just don't enjoy as much. And it's like I said, it's that slowly, it's not that I don't have a problem. There are people that are flipping guitars. It's just I get in a point where like when 60% of the people are flipping guitars and the other 30% are retailers. Okay, that's really doesn't make sense. 40% of them are retailers, 20% of them are flippers, right? And then only the difference is legitimate sale transactions. It does take some of the fun out of the whole experience, is what I'm trying to say. That's all. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's just I don't enjoy it as much. And now you see this. Look at look at this comment today. Somebody's like, hey, I'm trying to sell my legit products. You know, something I want to get rid of. I want to sell to the US. It's a big market. And I have a used guitar. He's probably got a guitar we all want. And he's probably willing to let it go for a good price. And here I am saying I don't want to chance it because of the headaches that have been created by the other people. That's what I'm trying to say. That's all. But more importantly, I'm really curious to what you guys think. So put it in the comments down below. I really want to know how off or on this subject I am. Especially since, like I said, this is live. This is the first thought I put into it. It's the first crap that comes out of my mouth. Okay. On that note, I'm going to let you guys go. Thank you guys for hanging out with me this Friday. I hope you guys are prepared to have a great weekend. Play some guitar, have some fun. And as always, I want to thank you. I want to thank the moderators, especially for making sure the thing flows and getting me all the questions. And even if I didn't answer them, and putting all the links and doing all the entry. And thank you for that. And all of you who hang out live and everybody. And you guys are amazing. And thank you. And I'll see you guys next Friday. All right. Tip your waiters. If you're learning something or having a good time, don't forget you can subscribe for free and help this channel. Or for $10 a month, you can join me on Patreon for live clinics where you can ask questions every single week.